Heidi-ho everyone, I am Nathan Blake, and I'm here to say thank you so much for 600 subscribers. This is so far beyond what I ever expected, what I ever thought was even possible for this channel, that I don't even know how to react. I don't even know what to say. All I can keep saying is thank you over and over and over again, because after we hit 500 subscribers, I couldn't imagine getting any more. I couldn't imagine being any bigger than we already were. I couldn't imagine ever getting more than the 7,000 to 10,000 minutes a month of watch time that we were getting at the time. And I thought, this is probably it. I'd already broken all of my preconceived notions about what was possible for the channel. And so I thought I wouldn't really grow anymore, much more after that, but I continued to grow, and you all shared my videos, and you retweeted my tweets, and you started showing up and watching me, and I suddenly realized that maybe I could do it. Maybe I could grow the channel more. Maybe I had already achieved what I thought was impossible by reaching 500. And so maybe there wasn't a barrier that I couldn't overcome with the channel. Maybe there isn't impossible as far as the channel is concerned. Maybe it's just a metric of how hard I work and how hard you work as fans and as people in the community. And when I realized that, that's whenever I realized that we can keep pushing this. We can go further with this channel. We can touch more people. We can reach more lives. And I can even make this my career at some point. And that would be the coolest thing in the world. If I could do this every day as just my actual job, and I could interact with you on a regular basis. So I wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to tell you from the bottom of my heart that I couldn't do this without all of you people watching and supporting. I couldn't do it without you commenting. I couldn't do it without you liking and sharing and chatting with me on Twitter and messages and things like that. And so that's the biggest thing about this thank you, is that you've created a community. I tried to start it, but it's been created through you and through your actions, and this community has actually become a place where I feel comfortable and where I want to hang out with you guys. I want to live stream so that I can just be there hanging out with you. And I wasn't interested in live streaming when I started the channel. That wasn't something that I cared to do. That's not something that I wanted to do. But I got to where I really thought it might be a fun thing to do outside of the charity live streams, of course. I like the idea of charity live streams, and we are getting back to those. We'll be doing a charity live stream in the first half of March. We were going to do one at the end of this month, but I was trying to work out some dates with some other YouTubers so that we could work together on it, and things weren't matching up, and I didn't want to do it without them. So anyway, we're going to just go ahead and plan it for the first third of March, probably on the 10th, likely. I'll put up a poll to double check on dates with people, but likely on the 10th of March, we'll be having a charity live stream. So we're going to start really trying to publicize that and get that out. But anyway, that all aside, I didn't realize that live streaming was something I would even be interested in before I started the channel, but now that I get to know all of you a little bit more and stuff, it's really cool, and I'm really excited to get to live stream and interact with you and be a part of the community with you. I'm actually kind of sad that at some point I honestly believe the channel will grow to a point where it will be hard to keep up with comments. It'll be hard to keep up with the chat. And that's exciting in a lot of ways. And it's also sad because I really like being able to talk to all of you and being able to interact with all of you. But I know that if this is going to become something that I do as a career, if this is going to become something that I do as more than just a big time hobby and a way to practice my skills, then it'll have to grow past that point. And so it's something that I don't do happily necessarily to make that jump and make that move forward. But it's something that I believe is necessary, especially if we're going to be a large enough channel that we're going to be able to help with charity and things like that. So that being said, thank you. Thank you so much. I figured that for the second half of this video, now that I've said thank you, now that we've talked a little bit about what's going on, I would tell you a little bit more about me. and I tell you a little bit more about how this channel started. A number of years ago, I became very close to a group of friends through playing Dungeons and Dragons, actually, of all things, and it wasn't something that I'd really done previously, and I really enjoyed it, and I really loved it, and so I was playing with them on a regular basis, and I became particularly close with one of them. His name's Ian, and he was actually one of the groomsmen in my wedding. And Ian and I got to where we would meet up about once a week for lunch outside of anything else that we did with the rest of the friend group. And the rest of the friend group, I'd like to point out, especially because some of you might even be watching this, I feel extremely close to all of you. I love you all. You're all some of my very best friends. And I'm so thankful for the relationship that I have with all of you. But basically, the reason this is important is because my relationship with Ian actually did lead to the creation of this channel. My relationship with the other friends did as well, in its own way, including the fact that we actually did start a YouTube channel together that was more of a hanging out on the couch playing a game together, goofing off sort of thing, much less of a professional let's play channel, and more of a let's record us having fun together and cracking jokes. With great edits, by the way, because Ian was the editor and he was amazing at it. Much better of an editor than I am. And you can actually see a link to that channel down below in the featured channels. It's the Dr. Fusion frequency. I think it just says Dr. Fusion. And that's actually been featured on my channel since pretty much the day I started uploading videos. So getting back to why I actually started my own channel. So Ian and I would meet sometimes twice a week for lunch, and we'd hang out, and Ian's a pretty shy guy, and he definitely had a bit of a shell that the closer I got to him, the more who he really was seemed to come out, but also our friend group seemed to help him actually come out of his shell some and open up more and be more willing to try new things, become more adventurous in general. And at one point, he finally asked me what I thought about the idea of him moving away to get a job somewhere else, because at the time, his work situation was not ideal. I don't want to get into too many details of his personal life, obviously, not that you know who he is, so it would make a huge difference, but at the time, he wasn't in an ideal situation in his job, but he felt obligated to be where he was, and so he thought that perhaps he had been offered by a friend that he could leave where he was working, move somewhere else, and work with a friend, and he felt that was not only an opportunity to get out of the situation that he felt like he was obligated to, but also a opportunity to stretch and grow as a person. And I was fully supportive of that decision, and I was so happy that he was willing to do that, and also was really excited that he trusted me to talk to me about it and talk to me about what his decision was. And he talked to me all through his decision-making process. So simultaneously, while that was going on, while I was talking to Ian about where he was going to be going in life and what was going to be happening with him, I had another friend, one of my other closest friends. His name is Nick. And Nick and I had been friends for years, 8 years or so. We met through a mutual love of performing and acting and working on projects. And we met through the church that we went to. And we did a lot of things together. We love video games. We play video games together, and we'd hang out and we work on building things and stuff like that. He was real big into doing his own personal home improvement projects and things like that. So I was always giving him a hand building things. Whenever we had an acting gig, we would build props together, and he would do the costumes. He's a tailor by trade. He got married, and I was good friends with both him and his wife. Continued to spend a fair amount of time with them. Actually split most of my time between him and his wife, my other friend group that I already mentioned with Ian and the people from D&D, and with my girlfriend, fiance / wife, depending on what time period we're talking about. I split my time between the three of them, the three groups. And as that continued to progress, especially after I got married, and Nick was actually one of my other groomsmen. I had my two brothers and then Nick and Ian as my groomsmen. As I got closer to marrying my wife, and as after we got married, the more time I spent with her, the more distant my relationship with Nick seemed to feel. Interestingly enough, my other friend group, no problems, especially considering them just saying, you take the time you need, you're married. Nick and I and his wife Amber seemed to drift apart from each other to some extent, and at one point, almost concurrently with when Ian told me he was thinking about leaving and moving to the other side of the country from me, Nick messaged me, and he told me that he messaged me on Facebook, and he basically broke up with me. He basically messaged me and told me that it wasn't me, it was him, and that we just didn't feel close anymore, and that he thought it would be a good time for us to take a break, and that we should stop hanging out together. And that was a very, very difficult thing to hear, because I felt like I had put a lot of time and effort and friendship into that relationship, and he was one of my very best friends, and his wife was too. I was very close to both of them and loved both of them, and so it was very, very difficult to hear that. And I had felt the distance growing between us, but I would never tell a friend that I didn't want to be around them anymore or spend time with them anymore just because I felt that way. In fact, it makes me want to spend more time with them a lot of times, because I want to get through it. I want to do better. But sometimes adult relationships, and I don't know, not all of you watching this may be adults, but something you'll learn is that adult relationships, sometimes you grow apart from each other. You grow in different directions, and it's perfectly natural and it's perfectly fine. What's not natural is to call somebody out over it and then tell them to please stay away from me, basically. Which is what he said in not so many words, and how I felt about it. So that was a really, really hard thing for me. And then Ian also did decide to move. And so at the same time, simultaneously, these two things happened. And suddenly, I didn't have as many reasons to stick around where I was as I did before. I'm a pretty empathetic person, and I'm a pretty I don't worry too much about myself, and so it wasn't until then that I realized that I was putting a lot of effort into my friendship with Nick, for instance, because I didn't want to make him feel like I didn't care about him. And so, I look around, obviously my family is there, I love my family, and I actually have a very good relationship with my family and with my wife's family. We actually have an amazing family dynamic, humorously enough. But I definitely needed some change in my life. I definitely needed to head in a different direction. At the time, I was an assistant manager at a retail paint store, and I was working on that. I was working a lot of 60-hour weeks and things like that, running myself ragged. It's a very physically demanding job. You're constantly lifting a lot of weight, moving it around a lot, long hours of driving, getting up very early, coming home late. There's a lot of exhausting things that come in that sort of business. And I suddenly realized that I was felt obligated to be where I was too. The way Ian did, only not necessarily to my job specifically, but around to be in the location I was. Even the church that I ended up going to, I went to because that's where Nick and his wife decided to go after leaving the church I was going to before, and I didn't feel like I fit in that church anymore, so I went with them. And so now that place didn't feel comfortable either, because they were there. And so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and which direction I needed to go with my life, and what was going on, and having my heart more or less broken by pretty much one of the people that I considered to be my best friend at the time. Ian was my best friend too. I had multiple best friends, but it was really, really hard. And so then my wife, she had been looking for a job at the time. She had just gotten out of her graduate program, and she was looking for work. And she mentioned in a way, in that way that you talk to somebody that you don't want to try to sway them to do anything. So you almost suggested almost like it's not serious, and then see what their reaction is. She mentioned how, it'd be funny if we took a travel job and she worked on a contract and we would be sent different places and we would see different parts of the country. And she said, but I know that you wouldn't necessarily want to do that. She said, I know that you like being here, and I understand that. And she's like, and I love our family too, and so I wouldn't want to necessarily do that either. And I said, what if we did do it? And so we started talking about it, and she had been offered a job for one of these travel agencies, and she accepted it. And then we had about a month to pack up and move 12 hours away from our families. So the money was good, and the situation was kind of seemed right. It seemed like a lot of things that I felt like connected me to where we were had suddenly moved away or severed themselves from me, and the only thing holding me there specifically was my family. And I love my family, like I said, and I miss them all the time. But we decided, well, we're young, and this is a good opportunity before we have any kids or before we do anything else for us to go and do some stuff and try some things. And up to this point in my life, without getting into too much detail about my past, just because it would take too long, I've been working very hard for a very long time since I was pretty young to help make ends meet in general, paying a lot of my own bills. And so it was finally an opportunity for me to be the one who could take some time and figure out what I wanted to do and what I needed. And so we moved, and we got here, and I had to come up with, like I said, in a month, I had to come up with a way that I would be able to contribute, something that I would be doing. And some of these contracts could last as short of a time as 2 months. So what could I do where we would show up in a town, I would be there for 2 months, and then I'd have to leave whatever job I was in. And so what I did is I signed up for classes in programming and in video editing, and I started doing that. And my plan is and has been to do freelance video editing and things of that nature. And so I started this channel initially because I've always wanted to start a channel like this ever since I became interested in YouTube, but also because it was a perfect opportunity for me to practice some of these skills and for me to build out a portfolio of sorts and things like that. And so really the thing that led me up to August 25th, which was whenever I released my very first video on my channel almost 6 months ago, not quite, was having my two best friends leave my life for one reason or another. Now, Ian and we still play games on a very consistent basis. We play online games together. I've barely spoken any words to Nick or his wife since then. And so these two people leaving my life made me feel like I was less tethered to where I was. But beyond that, seeing Ian, this person who is very shy and reserved and pretty set in his ways, break out, come out of his shell, decide he was going to leave, go to a different state, even though he knew it was going to be hard, just so that he could try to grow as a person, was very inspiring. And I wanted to do the same thing. I was willing to try to do the same thing. And so that's how we get to this point right here. And maybe at some point I'll do a Draw My Life, or I'll do something comprehensive, because the story of me wanting to be in this sort of line of work of entertaining and things like that starts at pretty much my birth. And so it's a very long story, and I can't really tell it all, especially not now, because this video is already longer than I would want it to be. But that's basically what got me from somewhere around January of 2017 to August of 2017 deciding that I wanted to make videos and edit videos for a living. So that's where I am now. That's what I'm excited about. I'm still I'm doing my classes, and I'm learning, and I'm self-teaching a lot too, and watching tutorials online, and I'm watching other people in the medium and watching what they do so I can learn from them, and then the channel is growing, and it's getting bigger, and it's taking off in some really cool ways, and it seems really, really cool. That maybe one day, instead of an editor who also entertained, I could maybe be an entertainer who also edited. And I'd be totally okay with that if that's where it ever came to. So, thank you all so much for listening to me ramble around about what got me into this, at least the last year of what got me into this. And, yeah, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. And also thank you for sharing the videos, because that's what grows the channel, is individual shares with individual people, saying, hey, brother, this is a video that I saw and thought of you and thought it was really funny and enjoyable, and I thought you would like it. That's what grows the channel. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for right now. I just wanted to kind of share a little bit of myself, a little bit of my life with you, and kind of explain to you how we got to this point. If you want to see something like a Draw My Life or something along those lines, want me to explain more about who I am, how I got to 2017, now that I've explained 2017 to 2018, let me know. Down in the comments, message me on Twitter, whatever it takes, just let me know if that's what you want me to do, and I'd be interested in doing it. I'd be interested in telling the story. So thank you so much for being here and for listening to me ramble, and I thank you for being a part of this community. And as always, I'll see you in the next one, and for now, this is Nathan Blake signing off for Nathanblakegames. Sayonara.